Thanks for tuning in. This is Nicholas Bolt with the news. Concern is rising across the U.S. and the world today. Security and delivery jobs are the number one hiring positions, and it's clear that will be on the rise. But one thing that doesn't seem to be addressed is the rising infection rate. I shouldn't say rising, I should say exploding. Numbers at this time are impossible to calculate. Initial estimates were that 270,000 people have perished from this illness in this short amount of time. But now scientists say that that number should be considered the low end. They estimate that by the end of the year, 6 to 10 million people at minimum will perish from this illness by the end of the year in the U.S. alone. And added that worldwide the death toll could exceed 1 billion. Or more. These are staggering numbers, but something else should frighten us even more. The results of what it does to those it infects, and more so because we don't fully understand how or why it does this. Unlike a normal extreme illness that results in death or hospitalization, something that even has a mortality rate, the results of this illness are far worse. It 100% turns its victims into mindless monsters that attack anyone they come in contact with, spreading the illness with pinpoint accuracy whenever they bite or even scratch their victims. The gestation period could only be described as excruciating, as victims suffer from high fevers, extreme cold chills, debilitating headaches, delusions, and hallucinations. And once the body can take no more, it breaks, resulting in a full loss of control. In short, a fate far worse than death, only made worse knowing that the victim is now the carrier looking for more people to infect. When will you die once you reach this state? Unfortunately, nobody knows. Some reports state it has prolonged the new life of those it infects with no known reason. Vast reports that those who succumb to this illness begin to eat those that they capture, feeding on their flesh in what could only be considered a macabre act that would chill anyone to the bone. Scientists and doctors from many reputable areas have been working non-stop to get these answers and have come up empty-handed. They state they understand how the underlying infection works, but have failed to release any information, saying that it's more important to understand how someone becomes infected than it is to understand how it works. Many would disagree with that statement. It's become a cat or mouse game that some have claimed is being done to capture government funding, and that was quickly released to pharmaceutical companies, I might add. The quick race to receive the fame of uncovering and curing this illness and the lucrative things it could mean, they claim, has caused scientists to play their cards very close to their chest, while many say that isn't the case. We have today with us Dr. Ralph Meridian to discuss. Doctor, how are you today?
I'm well. Thanks for asking.
I hope you can forgive me for jumping right in, but what do you say about the claim that you and your fellow doctors are looking at this illness more as a way to make a quick buck by curing it?
It's completely preposterous. It is true that we are having a difficult time with this infection, but many of us have been sharing our information and data with each other, trying to get to the bottom of this. A bigger problem is that the government is making it difficult to research this illness and has continued to hamstring our efforts. Is it true that there are scientists that aren't sharing information fluidly, of course? But that's the exception, not the rule.
So you're saying that there are those that don't want to share information?
I don't want to claim malice where ignorance is an option. I don't believe they're doing that to be deceitful, but because smaller research facilities are limited in staff and unable to use best practices in sharing their research.
So would you be willing now to tell us exactly how this illness works and how you get it?
I would love to, but we're talking about an advanced illness that is very difficult to explain. It is just easier for me to say, We have successful testing methods we've provided to civil defense and consumer pharmaceuticals that are now being rushed to the public to discover if you have this illness. What we're having a problem with is people actually acquiring it to test. And I think the problem is the speed of the infection to act on those that fall under its effects.
So you won't share that information, but you're choosing to blame the victims for their lack of testing?
No. The goal here is to make sure we slow the spread of this illness before more people die. And at this time, the power to do that is in the hands of police, National Guard, and even more so, the people themselves. This is a time to stay home, quarantine, and help protect each other.
Thank you, Doctor, for coming in and providing that eye-opening interview. We're going to head into a break right now, and we're going to be back after this message to discuss more.
Security is everyone's priority. To keep your family, your community safe, we here at Head First Security agree. We want to provide the best in community protection in your time of need. We offer competitive rates, adjustable hours, 24-hour service, and more importantly, personal peace of mind. To know that you're helping your world be a safer place. Head First Security. Putting you first in safety.
We live in trying times, and it's okay to be down, but sometimes you need someone to talk to. Here at Theraphone, we understand and have provided the best on-call staff to help you in your darkest times. Maybe you just need someone to talk to, or maybe it can be too hard to handle. Remember, you're worth it. Call us at Theraphone and allow one of our professionals to help you get back on your feet. When you're down, let Theraphone pick you up. Standard phone and on-call rates apply. Contact your insurance for full coverage details.
You're listening to 20MB13 Radio, your best source of the truth in radio and information around the world. Let 20MB13 Radio be your source for what's really eating you. 20MB13 Radio.
You're back with your host, Nicholas Bolt. We've been discussing current events, and although there are many topics that many have gone over ad nauseum with little or no headway other than to say we're losing ground, apparently fear still sells. But it seems there is one topic that very few are discussing, but it is just as important: the job front. Many jobs are no longer seen as important. A desk job is almost non-existent. You'll be hard-pressed to find anyone that goes to work to risk their life just to push a pencil. But in other areas, we're seeing a lot of growth. First is in delivery jobs. These are areas where individuals now stuck at home waiting for this to all blow over get hungry or need supplies, and they need someone that acts as sort of a trucking company for in-home use. We're coming to a time now that many stores have even locked their doors to anyone but delivery drivers. And this has opened a great deal of opportunity for inspired individuals to take to their vehicles and deliver these needed supplies. The biggest hurdle, obviously, is advertising and marketing, but again, the truly blessed in this sector can easily take advantage of the opportunity. In full disclosure, I am biased, but the power of radio is still relevant and is a great opportunity to get the word out, and we've seen many would-be advertisers call us to get the word out on their new opportunities. The next sector that is springing up, but not as powerful, has been shelter construction. Unlike house building, these individuals can supply what they call additional fortification options, advanced locks, or even the entire shelter itself. A famous one that was early on was the Anderson shelter systems that provide the entire shelter, some even mobile, amphibious, and again fortified. So if you're a house builder or someone this security that understands how to protect house owners, this may be a great option for you, although for many it is cost prohibitive. But the biggest growth we've seen has to be in security itself. From advisors to actual boots on the ground, the options are prevalent. PMC, or private military corps, are now all the rage to governments and those with deep pockets. What used to be a simple drive into an exotic locale could now be a possible death trap, and having the right security team has become very important to these individuals. This goes double for infrastructures like power and phones. Teams that once simply called for a police detail that is now no longer available needs more hands-on protection to do their critical jobs, and we're starting to see rolling caravans that arrive at critical sites. A business, from those that continue their efforts to those that are specifically quarantined, like grocery stores, are seeing a solid need for security on site, and with growing concerns of looting, these individuals are almost required. If you don't have deep pockets or a nice housing community or condo, smaller security options are available to protect you from infected or theft, especially in more rural areas. Group purchases that allow for growing areas to share the cost of these security systems has become a prevalent detail. Lastly, just being someone who knows security, firearms, or general defense, it has options for you. We've seen many security advisors just showing up to individual houses to quickly enact seminars to help those who are encountering infected or live in or near dangerous areas. There's so many options, and it's impossible to go over all of them here. What kind of training or experience is required for these positions? Well, that's the beauty of it. Many are entry level. A security guard doesn't even need to understand the use of a firearm to get a solid position. More advanced security, such as PMC, require advanced skills such as police or military training, but on a whole, the demand is so high that simple good practices may all that's needed to require to get a high-paying position. And usually now training is provided by the person hiring. The only real concern regarding these growing sectors is they are now usually long hours in an ever more increasingly stressful and dangerous area. They are not for the weak of heart or those that are unprepared. So bring yourself accordingly. If you are looking for a new or growing job sector, though, these could be great options for you. As the world falls apart, you could see yourself thriving, or even better, being part of the solution. We'll be right back after these messages to discuss more.
Is every minute important to you? Time wasted driving to the store to pick up groceries or laundry when you could be enjoying time with your family? Stop all that wasted time and call Walker Services. We can do everything. Pick up your restaurant order, deliver your packages, or skip line at the grocery store, all delivered to your door. Our fast and efficient drivers will keep you updated throughout the process, so you know exactly where your precious cargo is and how long before it will arrive. Walker Services can get it to you so you can get on with life.
With current events, people are afraid for their family. Here at Anderson Shelter Systems, we want your family to be safe. Unlike a simple tent that provides little protection from the elements or invasion, Anderson Shelter Systems have you covered. They keep you warm in the cold and cool in the heat, and folds up for easy storage. Upgraded track systems are even available. Pick up your Anderson mobile shelter today. Don't be left out in the cold. Your family deserves it.
You're listening to 20MB13 Radio, your best source for the truth in radio and information around the world. Let 20MB13 Radio be your source for what's really eating you. 20MB13 Radio.
Nicholas Bolt here, giving you all the top news in radio. We've been talking about things no one else talks about, and since we're on that trend, I say we stick with it. When all began, we were given instructions, specific instructions. What we found was much of what we heard on television and movies was vastly incorrect. Sure, they got some things right, but when the rubber hit the road, much of it lost control and skid into the bushes. It didn't account for the rain, the mud, or even the human condition. Maybe it was more exciting to see people running in the streets or clogging freeways, but we realized quickly that that's not how things were. Early on, our politicians decided to start erecting shelters in places they saw as safety. They instructed people to not go to hospitals and instead direct themselves to shelters, some run by civil defense and others run by local fire departments or other emergency situations. So did everyone follow those instructions to the letter? Absolutely not. They did the exact opposite. Like a mosquito to the bright light, they headed out to hospitals that turned into frying machines. Maybe they just didn't hear the news. Maybe they don't listen to the radio, which is why you should share our broadcast, I might add. But I digress. Hospitals responded in the only way they knew, by screening people and trying to turn them away. But instead of going to shelters, they simply sat in the parking lot. Anyone that arrived, they were told that as soon as the space was made available, they'd be seen. But those were the people in the parking lot who didn't get the info. Instead, it was a powder keg. Infected, promulgated hospitals, resulting in lockdowns and closures early on. Some even said the hospitals were the breeding grounds for this infection, like human rat traps that guaranteed you were closest to the infection when it finally popped off. Individuals in critical care wards, those with the weakest immune system, people who hadn't even come into contact with the illness, began to succumb, and when you thought the infection would be in the waiting room, it was happening on the critical care wards, causing confusion. A couple of floor above, a two-front battle that everyone was guaranteed to lose. Nurses and first responders were bitten and injured, causing a cyclical problem. When the staff become part of the infection, well, you don't have anyone to help anymore, and buildings become completely useless. You'd think at this point that shelters would flood, right? Well, you'd be mistaken. It was clear from the beginning that no matter how much governors like to talk, that folks are very good at not listening. People who were at first told to quarantine decided they'd just do that. It was safer at home for them anyway, right? They had a warm bed. The electricity and phone was still working. Just turn on the television and watch events unfold from the safety of their living rooms. That is until the sickness began knocking on their doors. Some left seeking better areas to ride out the storm, but most did the worst idea ever. They began boarding up, like it was some sort of storm. Like a hurricane of people would just blow through and it would all be over. When many were asked why they stayed so long in these dangerous areas, the response was they thought it would just all blow over, that someone would come and rescue them. And that's how it happened in all other situations, right? Individuals on rooftops with signs that said "Alive Inside" began to pop up as the flood waters of the monsters began to rise. But there was no helicopter coming, no boat to ride the waves. Instead, it's believed that many will starve to death, still positioned up there, and it's possible added themselves to the crash of the waves on their front porch. Now, you'd think at this point that the government would do the right thing. You'd be sorely mistaken. They considered buildings and structures unsafe for living, and many places banned private property. You were no longer just quarantined. You had to move out, too. Now you'd think that people would go to shelters, right? No. People simply ignored the bans. And as National Guard moved through buildings trying to clear things out, they found that people had simply dumped the infected in basements, barns, or even closets. They had stuffed them away while still living in these structures. The people that were forced to government shelters early found an even bigger problem. Supplies that were made for a few days barely lasted hours. Clogged toilets and lack of sanitary services meant that people were getting sick of other things as well, and the inevitable would happen that somehow a PACE victim would find his way inside. The only saving grace for the world right now is that this hasn't happened everywhere. The Northwest has seen very little of any activity. Maybe it's the mountains that are safe, the higher climates. People have considered the cold, but even those have been debunked. But again, scientists aren't sharing their information, so we don't know. These areas are guarded, their anonymity with impunity, They don't want people coming in. Militias are springing up all over, and people are taking their safety very seriously if they're in a place that hasn't been infected. Creating and closing makeshift borders and rejecting anyone that comes near. Even when local government try their best to stop the practice, it simply springs back up. What people are learning is that connecting with people is dangerous. They're learning to isolate, and it's an awful lesson, at least until they feel safe again. Connecting with anyone you don't know is no longer safe. That stranger that came into town with the cough, he could be the one that wipes out your entire existence, and you can't have that. He could be carrying the plague that ends all plagues. They haven't fallen back to public stonings, thankfully, but getting kicked out of the protective circle is now a problem humanity hasn't seen in circulation since the Stone Age. What we're learning again is how trust is the most important item we have in our arsenal, and why it's better to be your most tangible asset. That didn't happen when the world started to collapse. No, it was important before, but we just didn't see it. We lost focus on it. Maybe in consumerism, maybe in watching TV promotions that distracted us and told us this is the way the world should look, and it looked nothing like that. We're also learning that the lesson that you can't trust your government, and that isn't a good thing. The best lesson is trusting each other, which means you can form a community, and you don't have community without it. That protective glue that means your neighbor isn't going to steal your stuff or try to stick it to you in a bad deal, such as lying about the quality of food that they're selling, or that item that they're selling you actually works. See, if you don't have these basics of trust, you don't have community. Things begin to break down when you call yourself a community, but you have no desire to help your neighbor in the community because you can't trust them. In some cases, they're even dangerous. They could be out to kill you. There is no common bond there. We've seen this hundreds of times before. All this happened, and we didn't even realize that it was happening. The trust in community must be naturally occurring for a structure to survive or have any sort of good foundation. You can't just call it a government. It doesn't work. And if it doesn't exist, such as a cutthroat regime that only cares about fighting and taking its people's stuff, it never grows to any sort of power, even if it uses it by force. Even if the power emerges, it collapses, and we've seen that over and over again. And now that these regimes are faced with a disease that turns people into flesh-eating monsters, these places lock up their citizens and force quarantines. It doesn't breed trust, and it definitely doesn't breed survival. What we're seeing in the middle America right now is a restructuring of that very idea. Community is forming, and it's naturally around people who are trusting each other, built on values and character, and that bond is becoming strong. And let's be honest, everyone loves hope. In the worst of times, you want to see a feel-good story, and there are groups out there right now trying to fight back while government tries to force people from their condemned homes. Who would you trust more? Someone who kicks you from your home and takes the very weapons you have for protection and safety? Or a group that brings you more weapons and helps you clean up the mess and keep living where you like to live? All while asking nothing in return, no tip, no tax, just, are you okay? And moves on to the next place. I know where I'd want to live. And what's a place where people are looking out for each other? And that's exactly what they're building. What's been so rewarding is seeing these folks that help each other are being fed without question. Never in history have I ever heard of a military walking through an area, being welcomed into the homes of those that live there, and making sure they are being well fed and getting a good night's sleep. It certainly isn't happening anywhere else in the world, I can assure you. I think the question we have left now is pretty simple. Is there anywhere safe? And the first answer that many would say right now, even though scientists would be no. But the truth is that's not accurate. Safety is where you look out for each other, and there are places like that popping up right now. It's a place where you have trust. We're merging together, and those without those cohesive bonds will fail, only held together by a government that is slowly being devoured in a different way. Government has said it is only going to focus on the enemy and protecting itself, and that left so many out in the cold. If you're waiting for them to rescue you, well, it's already too late. But if you have friends, if you have cohesion, if you have trust, you can rebuild community and you can build a safe place. How long will this be? How long before this all blows over? That's really the question that many are asking, and maybe that is the most important question. If we're listening to scientists, I think this isn't a month or a year or maybe even a decade. In fact, I think it's already been here, and it's been here for a while. The illness is just a magnification of a system of mistrust that we've always had, and we let it fester until it became what it always was. It was funded by government. It was survived by being propped up by a lie. And the people that have come to devour us, they look like us. If you look at it like that, then we really can live with this. But if we lie to ourselves and hide the victims in the basements or even feed them to keep them alive, we're in essence feeding the dead with the living. And we don't deserve to survive. But I have hope. I think someone said a dream once that we can pull together and we can see the truth of the system that we live in right now, and we can find a way out. And I do believe that that future can only be built on a foundation of trust and a foundation of character. And I hope today that if you didn't do that before, that you'll start doing it now, because that is what your survival will depend on it. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope we'll see you on the next show, if there is one. But as long as the airwaves are open, we plan to be here. See you soon. This is Nicholas Bolt, signing off.
Security is everyone's priority. To keep your family, your community safe, we here at Head First Security agree. We want to provide the best in community protection in your time of need. We offer competitive rates, adjustable hours, 24-hour service, and more importantly, personal peace of mind. To know that you're helping your world be a safer place. Head First Security. Putting you first in safety.
We live in trying times, and it's okay to be down, but sometimes you need someone to talk to. Here at Theraphone, we understand and have provided the best on-call staff to help you in your darkest times. Maybe you just need someone to talk to, or maybe it can be too hard to handle. Remember, you're worth it. Call us at Theraphone and allow one of our professionals to help you get back on your feet. When you're down, let Theraphone pick you up. Standard phone and on-call rates apply. Contact your insurance for full coverage details.
20MB13 Radio is your go-to source for all your needs. When you feel like the world is ending, we're here to set the record straight. Broadcast weekly to the masses. We talk truth in broadcasting and covering serious events that actually affect you. Your survival is important to us, and each person we reach is another person we save. We hope you'll help us in that journey and become a member of our growing audience. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. We hope that 20MB13 will become your home, your refuge and shelter. Pull up a place by the fire and let us tell you a story of hope and victory. A place where you don't just survive, but how to thrive. 20MB13 Radio.
Come on in, my love. Let me take those rainy claws away. You've been running for so long. You need a safe place just to stay. Don't worry, it's not dangerous. In fact, it could be fun indeed. This old worn out shelter well, it's all you could ever need. When the world ends, baby, let us sit by the fire, we two, with the electricity between us. We can fuel my desire for you. Outside is bleak and hopeless, in here it's big enough for two. Just sit a little closer, here's a blanket just for you. You're all I've ever dreamed of. Let me take those fears away. There's enough food for you. All I want is that you'll stay. When the world ends, baby, let us sit by the fire, we two, with the electricity between us. We can fuel my desire for you. Around us and death is at our door, I close the door, lock up the key, and you'll be with me forevermore. When the world ends, baby, let us sit by the fire, we two,